Chapter 16, Destiny, God, and Letting Go of Anger. After crossing inevitability, refining justice, and understanding the limits of each consciousness, a silent but decisive question arises. What do we do with what continues to hurt us? If we understand that an action was inevitable, why forgive? And even harder, why forgive when the action keeps happening? This may be one of the most demanding questions in the whole book, because it touches anger directly, a powerful emotion, often felt as fair, protective, and even necessary. Anger seems to say, this should not be happening. But after everything that has been understood up to this point, that sentence begins to lose its ground. If the action was inevitable in that moment, then it could not have been different. And if it repeats, that is not a sign of moral defiance or deliberate ill will, but of a real inability to act otherwise. What we call a recalcitrant person, the one who insists on error, is, in truth, a clear demonstration of what this book has been showing. They still cannot be different. This does not mean unrestricted tolerance. Limits remain necessary. Rules still exist. Containing harm remains legitimate. None of that is abandoned. What changes is the place of expectation. The question stops being, why does this person insist? And becomes, why expect from them something they still cannot offer? It is in this shift that anger begins to lose meaning. Anger is born from the expectation that the other could have acted differently and chose not to. But if that expectation is false, then anger rests on an error. It is not correct, it does not educate, it does not transform. It only consumes energy trying to demand the impossible. Even recognizing that anger itself is an inevitable effect, and does not mean it must be maintained indefinitely. Understanding its origin does not oblige us to carry it forever. On the contrary, reason begins to show that insisting on it is remaining trapped in an unreal demand. If we understand that someone could not have acted differently at that point, what exactly are we demanding by maintaining indignation? That the world function outside the conditions that make it possible? Here, forgiveness stops being an elevated moral gesture and becomes an act of lucidity. To forgive is not to absolve the action, nor to deny the harm caused. It is simply to abandon an expectation that no longer makes sense. It is to release the demand that the other be something they still cannot be. This letting go does not impoverish life. It lightens it. When we let go of anger, we're not saying everything is fine. We are saying we understand how things work, and we choose not to waste energy fighting what could not have been different. Containing the error can remain firm, but without hatred. Correction can remain necessary, but without contempt. It is here that the idea of destiny gains its deepest meaning. Destiny is not what prevents us from acting. It is the name we give to the set of causes we do not control. And God does not appear here as a judge who demands absolute freedom in order to punish, but as the only perspective capable of understanding the whole, including what up close seems unjustifiable to us. Like characters inside a novel, we live real pains, real conflicts, real losses. But the full meaning of the narrative is not available to us. To demand to understand it completely is to demand the impossible. To trust that it exists is a gesture of humility, not of submission. When this settles, something grows quiet. The need for revenge gives way to active acceptance. Not a passive or resigned acceptance, but an acceptance that acts where it is possible and abandons the fight where it is not. To forgive, in this context, is not an imposed duty. It is a natural consequence of understanding. Whoever understands deeply stops hating not by moral virtue, but by clarity. Perhaps this is one of the highest points a consciousness can reach. To act firmly without anger, to impose limits without contempt, to protect without hating. Here, destiny stops being a heavy word and becomes a form of trust, not because everything is good, but because everything is inserted into an order greater than our immediate vision can reach. In the final chapter, we will take the last step of this crossing, how to live without the fantasy of absolute authorship, without crushing guilt, and without chronic anger. and still with responsibility, care, and love for the real world. For now, stay with this silent and liberating idea. If we understand that something could not have been different, insisting on anger stops being justice and becomes a waste of life.